Well, this took probably 2 years more in the making, I would say, give or take.
Oh boy.
Welcome, everyone. This is the inaugural episode. This is number 1 of, This is Flames Cast, Calgary Flames podcast by yourself, Kyle, along with my good buddy Neil, who does have a show of his own, but for the time being, he's going to be a Flames fan, whether he likes it or not. But I still appreciate him doing this with me. Thank you though. I know it's a different avenue for you, but I still appreciate having you on.
I think it's about time that you and I actually had a podcast together, because you and I have done, a lot of live watch alongs on THPN's YouTube channel, which obviously Kyle and I will do a lot of those throughout the year. I think I'm going to try to be live at least for the first, hopefully both games, the first 2 games of the season for the New Jersey Devils as they play in Czechia against the Buffalo Sabres. So that should be a lot of fun to kind of, with the global series, get right into it, which, geez, what is it, like less than 2 weeks away? Wow, we're really at that
Give or take.
Yeah, we're really running. But no, I'm excited to do this. When Kyle first brought up the idea, I was like, well, it's something new, something fun, and I'm looking forward to, learning as much as I can about the Flames, keep an eye on them. And I'm excited. I'm really excited. And it doesn't hurt that I have a little bit of experience with a couple of former Devils now turned Calgary Flames. So I have a little bit of insight, at least with that. So I'm not completely out of the norm here. I will finish my point by just saying that Alberta is red.
Great. Oh, we love learning. This is going to be such a learning experience. Oh, that's awesome.
So Calgary's located in Canada, right?
Yeah. C. Wait, no, C. C for
C,
Canada.
right.
That's
This isn't.
what it is.
We're not talking about the Atlanta Flames from like the '60s. That's not what we're
I know,
talking
right? Well, it's kind of like, it's funny because this is a good time to do it, right? Because this is such a new era for this team, right? It's you consider all the moves that they made last year, bringing in a new GM, everything that kind of transpired that we won't really get into because it's all in the past and it's kind of happened. It just kind of feels like the right time because there's just new pieces coming in. You see the preseason game yesterday with a lot of these young guys as well, and it just kind of felt like the right time to do it. And for myself, I mean, I'm just a guy who works with that THPN alongside Dylan here. We'll get into the Canucks a little bit later because we do have a little topic for it. But I wanted to kind of get underway here a little bit here because it was going to be a preseason preview, but then I didn't realize that there was a game going on yesterday.
Of course.
So let's jump into it. So
Sure.
Flames Kraken yesterday, first game of the preseason for both teams last night. Calgary did come away with a 6-1 win. A couple of stats that I have on my end, excuse me, was Coronato. He recorded a goal and 2 assists last night. Wolf was pretty sharp as well on his end. He stopped 33 of 34 shots. And as well as Samuel Honzek and Hunter Brustevich as well, getting 2 assists. And Adam Klapka, another one, too, scoring a goal. We'll kind of get into all that a little bit, but first thing I really wanted to bring up was Matthew Coronato, who was, regarded last night as just probably the guy that stood out the most, right? He's a guy that's playing on the left side of this lineup, with I forget who he was on the line with yesterday, but he stood out in a way that he was just very creative in his puck moving abilities, especially in the offensive zone. And, it showed on the score sheet as well. So my question for you, Neil, is with Coronato, I mean, he's kind of had this performance last year in the preseason and it didn't really translate into the regular season. What did you kind of see from Coronato and, what do you kind of make of him?
Well, you did mention about, he didn't translate his production in the preseason to the regular season. In 34 games, 3 goals, 6 assists, just 9 points. And I think he was probably one of the more bigger disappointments. I think a lot of Flames fans can agree with that because of what he had done to start. I take this like I take preseason in general. I take it with a grain of salt. It's important. Obviously, these games are important. It's really massive to get off to a good start, to find that consistency right away. But you're really not going to be able to figure a lot of things out until you're 10, 15 games into the regular season. But that's not to say that Coronato didn't have a great game. He had a really, really great game last night against Seattle. He looked he looked confident. I think he looked more confident than he did last preseason, to be honest with you. He looked like he just looked comfortable out there. And
Totally.
maybe it's just the Flames organization giving him a lot more leeway to just kind of do what he needs to do, use that speed. He does have a sneaky good shot that I think people seem to miss out on, which again, when you only score 3 goals in 36 games, it's kind of hard to really see that he has a good shot. But
Yeah.
no, he looked good. He looked good. He looked confident out there. And, again, it is preseason, but nonetheless, a really good start for him to begin this preseason for sure.
My worry a little bit is because he's a right winger, true, and they had him on the left side yesterday. So
Yeah.
my concern going into this season is where does he kind of fit in this lineup? Because you have Kuzmenko, who's a right wing. He's going to be playing up a lot of line one power play minutes. You're going to have Anthony Mantho, you just acquired this offseason, or you just signed, He's going to be your right winger, probably going to be on that second line. Blake Coleman coming off a good year last year. He's another right winger, So really the only way to kind of incorporate him is to kind of find him on that left side. And, I think that's probably one of the reasons why Huska has him on that left side to start. So it's going to be interesting to just watch that progression a little bit going into the season. Again, we're not going to really know 10, 20, 30 games in and to kind of see how it goes with Coronato. But I'm just curious to see where he's going to really fit on that lineup because you can't really put him on the fourth line either, especially after the performance that he's done last night and kind of what he's capable of doing. So, him being a right winger, him now going to the left, I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see kind of what happens as we inch a little bit closer to the year. And I wanted to bring up just the next guy here. I wanted to bring up Wolf. And I can't remember where I saw this stat, but again, mentioned that he had 33 of 34 shots on him last night, stopped 33 of those 34. 12 of those were high danger chances.
Yeah.
And turned away every single one of them. So he looked really good last night. Going forward, it is still a competition with him and Vladar going forward into especially the split squad game tonight where you're going to see Cooley and Vladar get some chances tonight. One game in, I mean, you can't, again, like you mentioned, you got to take it with a grain of salt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to like what Wolf was showing yesterday against, mentioned it before we jumped on, that was a Kraken team that still had some good NHL players within that lineup. Jordan Everly, blah, 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 names go on. I thought he looked really good. I thought it was important that those high danger chances were all stopped as well, and it gives him a little bit of confidence moving forward. Your thoughts on Wolf?
Yeah, well, I think, and again, you didn't see the full squad out there for Calgary, but I really, as much as it's great that, Dustin Wolf had a really good game stopping 30-plus shots, you mentioned the 12 high danger chances. If I'm not mistaken, last year, Jacob Markstrom in his last year with Calgary finished the last season leading the NHL in high danger save percentage. I think that was the stat. What's up, Gaza? Good to see you, my friend. I think they have to find a way to really do a better job of locking down that center area because that's where the high danger chances are coming from. I feel like the defense is a little bit lackadaisical, but again, it's the first preseason game. You can only evaluate so much. But I think overall, Dustin Wolf looked confident. And I think now he understands, okay, Markstrom's now gone. Vladar, he's been there, obviously. And Vladar is a good, solid goaltender, don't get me wrong. But Vladar is more accustomed to being the number 2 guy. So I think in Dustin Wolf's mind, he's having the mindset of, this is my job to lose. This is my opportunity with a rebuilding Calgary Flames team to now take the reins. And I think that was a really good step for him. And I think that the Flames should really give him as much opportunity as possible. So for him to have a performance like he did last night is important, not just from the sake of just getting himself, loosened up and ready to go for the preseason, but also just in general, because there's going to be games throughout the year where he's going to have performances like that if he wants to give the Flames a chance to win those low-scoring games. Granted, it wasn't a low-scoring game, but still, he played very, very well. I think really good first impression from him. I think the one thing that really impressed me, Kyle, more than anything, is that he has a really sharp T-push. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. It's just when he makes that push from right to left, you know how sometimes the goaltender may lean a little bit, they might overdo it, and then they leave it up. He's very firm and getting over there. I think it was in the second period. I think it might have been a 2-on-1, and he made a great T-push from right to left and made a really, really good glove save. It was really it was one of those things I noticed and I said, wow, that you don't see that often, especially from a young goaltender. And remember, goaltenders come a dime a dozen, and you're only going to get so many opportunities, even if you're a young guy. This is clear as day. We've seen it throughout the NHL all the time. It's important for Dustin Wolf to look that way and to get it right in the preseason so that when the regular season comes, he's locked in and ready to go right away. And I think what's also great is that even though there is pressure on Wolf, there isn't, because this is a rebuilding team. They're trying to see what they got. They're trying to get the young kids going, and he's part of that development. And it's all about development. And I think that Dustin Wolf, he could take it one game at a time. I think he'll be okay. Just having that focus of focus on this one game, then go to the next one. But overall, you can't complain about Wolf's performance last night. Really, really good performance.
And that's just the key word all year. It's just development, right? And and Dylan brought up in the comments there that we'll kind of get it all towards the end with some questions and that. But the one thing is it's difficult because you want this team to show that development this year. Problem is that you want to stay in that bottom 10 because for some of you that don't know, there's conditions that are tying with it from the Sean Monahan deal. We traded that first round pick away. And if we end up outside that top 10, I believe that pick goes to Montreal. If we end up inside, then they'll take Florida's. There's too many conditions. But from what I gathered, I think that's what it was. Right. But, to your point, I mean, it's a good start. You can't say anything too early about it. But, I just thought for Wolf, it was a really good game last night. And, you're just going to have off nights, though, too. But, from what we're seeing, like you mentioned, you said it perfectly. Like, it is his job to lose, right?
For sure.
Two guys, though, I think, outside of it being, it's a 6-1 win, all that stuff. The wins and losses in preseason truly don't matter, right? Two guys that I was really watching for last night were Sam Honzek, who was injured all last year, 16th overall pick, first-round pick for the Flames. And you also had Hunter Brustevich, who was acquired in that Elias Lindholm deal, which we'll kind of get into in a bit later as well.
Right.
I thought they played very well last night. And I thought that Sam Honzek, what I noticed is that he kind of transitioned through the neutral zone very well. He's easily setting up plays, made some good connections with, I believe it was Cole Schwint he was playing with on his other side. So I thought that was working really well. He had a strong performance last night. Brustevich as well, too. Man, the guy moves he's not like Cale Makar, but he kind of moves in that silky kind of way, right?
It's a smooth
I wanted to bring this up because this was mentioned earlier today, and whenever they talked about it on 32 Thoughts with Elliot Friedman, they brought up about the fact that he said a buddy of mine said to me, "You better learn how to spell this guy's name because this guy is just it," right? Yeah. That was from one column who also posted that, so appreciate them bringing that up. But it's true. It's going to bite the Canucks in the you-know-what in the next couple of years, I would say, because this kid looks special. And I think from what Huska said yesterday after the game, it reminds him of a younger Rasmus Anderson, which is great, right?
Right.
I was really impressed with him. I'm really excited to continue watching him. Tonight, he's in a split squad game against McDavid and Draisaitl tonight, so that's a really big test. It's preseason, but you want to see how he's going to adapt to, the best at their craft, right, in the game.
Right.
And it's those two, right, outside of, a couple others. But I'm really impressed, and I'm really excited to see what Brustevich or Brushewitz, I'm going to butcher that name 50 million times this year, I swear. Yeah. What do you make of him? And then also, too, with Honzek, coming back from injury, what are some, and I know you're not familiar yet with these guys, but what are your kind of initial thoughts?
By the way, keyword is yet.
Yes.
Give me time.
Yes.
Give me time.
What do you make of those two guys in your eyes and from what you kind of saw from last night?
Okay, well, we obviously need to pump the brakes on Bruce Schwebitz being the next Cale Makar. Let's start with that.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. It was just the way that.
No, I know, but I'm saying I think, what was that, Elliot Friedman that said that? Or he heard it from somebody?
Yeah, well, no, that's just me saying that. It was just the way that he moves, right? It was just so you can compare it to a lot of guys in the league who do it as well. Like Quinn Hughes is probably another. You can make an argument for Luke Hughes.
Cale Makar is the best example of that, though. No, but
that was the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of that swift skating, that's the best example. Quinn Hughes is probably the second best when it comes to that. Um, yeah, no, it's really exciting to see some of these young prospects, really, really showing their might. And we have to remember, Schwebitz is not a tall guy either. He's only 6 foot. I believe he's only 6 foot, if I'm understanding correct. So he's a
I think
little bit
so.
undersized for his position. But nonetheless, being undersized as a defenseman still gives you the opportunity to be very, very quick and nimble. And I think that that's what we saw a lot of last night. He added 2 assists. I have to be honest with you that there's times where when you're a rebuilding team and you're watching prospects, you're looking for guys that are really just immediately going to try to take charge, that want that puck on their stick, that want to take control. And Brushevitz saw that opportunity and he looked really, really confident. He looked
Right.
he looked like he'd been there for several years. He looked very good. But going through the neutral zone and everything, he really did a good job. I think the one thing that I will say is this. The one thing I guess you could call it a criticism is that he's got to find a way to get in front of the puck a little bit more on the defensive side. Again, small body, I get it, but at the same time, you got to find a way to have the right position to get down and try to block shots. Other than that, this is a guy that honestly, I'm not saying he's going to make the roster out of camp this year, but I'm really intrigued to see how he develops wherever. I don't know if is he going to end up with in the AHL or is he going to?
He's got to play pro. He's
going to play pro for sure,
if he's
right?
doing this, if he was playing yesterday and this is what he's doing, you can't. I don't think you can send him back to. He was playing for the Kitchener Rangers, so
yeah,
I think he's reached that age limit. But regardless, he needs to start playing pro minutes.
Without question. And I think if you're not going to have him playing with the big club, which I understand if you want to, because there's a fine line between having a lot of your prospects in the developing in the league right now and having more of a balance of veteran young guys while you're developing. Because you still want to win some amount. You don't want to just like go full develop and then only win like 12 games and look like the San Jose Sharks last year. I mean, and the Sharks had a bunch of veterans on their team. They just sucked, quite frankly. And I'm not. And look, there's no bona fide like number one pick this year, which is a shocker to all of us.
Right.
But I think for me, the way that I see it is this: if he keeps playing this way, you definitely got to keep him playing pro hockey, whether that's with Calgary or playing in the AHL. But at some point, he's got to come up, whether that's early in the season or later on in the year when maybe after the deadline, and you give him the last 20, 25 games of the year to really just kind of go ahead, let's see what you can do. He looked very promising. So I'm really curious. I'm going to definitely keep my eye on him and make sure that I pronounce his name correctly so that I don't get destroyed later on by every Calgary Flames fan on the planet. Talking about Hronek. Now, talking about Hanzik. You know what's interesting about Hanzik? I remember watching him playing with Slovakia alongside Simon Nemec of the New Jersey Devils. I'm just going to make that connection. Just bear with me, guys. They're both from Slovakia, which it should prove that Slovakia is a country that's on the rise when it comes to hockey. They are getting more and more guys into the National Hockey League and playing at a really high level. You have Slavkovsky, you have Nemec. Now you have Hanzik. Hanzik was hurt most of the year last year, but this is, I don't know what it is about him, but he plays bigger than he is, if that makes sense. I don't know if you get what I'm saying with that.
I got you. Yeah.
Bigger than he is. And I think that that's important because it's not always easy to, there's guys who are like 6'7" and don't use their body at all. Hanzik is 6'4", which is still pretty tall considering his position and playing a wing position. But I don't know. I really like, he seems to be like a guy that could be a really solid two-way forward. That's the way that I see it. I could see him being a guy that could deliver on offense, but also bang the body and be like a grinding out type of player. It's hard to figure out right now if he's going to eventually be a top 6 guy, but I can definitely see him being a top 9 guy with the way he plays the game. So I like him, but I think for me, because of the fact that he was hurt most last year, I got to see more, not just from this preseason, but like moving forward. I just want to see him on the ice. And then I think you talked about Klapka, if I'm not mistaken.
Briefly, yeah, he's another tall guy too.
He's just a really, really tall guy. And I think you're starting to notice the Flames are kind of going in that direction of let's get as many tall guys as possible. I mean, you also added Kevin Ball in that trade for Jacob Markstrom. He's 6'7", doesn't use his body, but I digress. But Klapka, I really hope that he scores like 1 goal this year so that Flames fans could just call it the Clapper. Like that, I just want like.
Well, he scored yesterday.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want to see more of that. Like in the regular season, call it the clapper. Yeah, call it the. But he looked good. He looked really good, and it shocked me because my response was, and to be fair, my response would be for most of these guys, who is he and where did he come from? Kind of my reaction to it. But he looked good. He looked really good. I really hope he uses his body. Like
the guy is short and so well.
Yeah.
For contact. He's 6'8", 235 pounds.
Use your body. I'm just saying, if you're 6'8" and well over 200 pounds in the NHL, use your body because it is the biggest asset you have. And I'm saying this about Kevin Ball because as somebody who watched Kevin Ball for several years, for the love of God, you are 6'7", use your body. You are big. You are not an offensive defenseman. Just hit somebody. Because you know what? If this becomes a team that has some young guys that are super physical, the Flames become a very difficult team to face off against, even if they don't have the world's greatest amount of talent.
Bingo. And what's
create that identity if you get what I mean. Create that identity.
And what's nice going into tonight's split squad game, you mentioned Klopka. He's gonna be playing on a line with Ryan Lomberg, who's just you know what to play against, right? And so to add to that point, it is a little bit of a pain, and it should be good. We'll get into the split squad game and other stuff after, but I'll give you a little bit of a breather because I'm gonna rip through some sponsor reads if you don't mind.
That's good.
TD Toddy taking it to the house, whatever you call a touchdown. They matter more. DraftKings Sportsbook, guys, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. If you're ready to place your first NFL bet, try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. If you're ready to do a touchdown dance of your own, score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app using code THPN, and that's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month BetterHelp Plus premium. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Show is also sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something you'd love to learn? And as an adult, do you make time to learn new things as often as you like, or was that just lost in childhood? It's helpful learning positive coping skills. This is where therapy can kind of come in and help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any age. So therapy does help for learning positive coping skills, like you mentioned, how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just those who experience major trauma and more. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp.com/THPN. That's HELP for help. Okay, so I feel like after this, it's like you got to take over afterwards. And I forgot my water, honestly, but let's dive into we got split squad games tonight. I wanted to bring it up just on my phone here too as well, just to kind of give you a brief idea and run through. You mentioned before the show, Kevin Ball will not be playing in any of these split squad games tonight. He is dealing with an injury. I don't know the injury by chance. I don't know if you do, but
I think they said lower body, but that's about as far as we're going to go with it because let's face it, guys, we never know until the end of the season.
You don't, right? So for tonight, just some key names just playing tonight. So in Calgary for the split squad game, you got Daniel Vladar, who's going to be starting. You're going to get Tyson Barrie, who's going to get his first crack as a Calgary Flame tonight as well, alongside Joel Hanley. Mackenzie Weegar will also be in it with a few others. Up front, you got some more or less a lot of veterans. So Backlund, Sharon Govich, Coleman, just to name a few. A couple of rookies coming in as well, too, that I'm excited for. Andrew Basha, William Strongren, and Cole Schwint as well. Going to throw in that Ryan Lomberg's also playing tonight as well, again, alongside Adam Klapka. And then in Edmonton tonight as well, the Flames did acquire signed Devin Cooley this offseason. He's going to be starting in Edmonton tonight. Bit of a younger roster going into Edmonton. So Rasmus Anderson, along with Bruce Stevich, is also going to be there as well on defense. Only two veterans up front for forwards for Calgary, and it's going to be Jonathan Huberdeau and Anthony Mantha. The rest is rookies galore. Coronato, we talked about earlier. Honzik, Jacob Battaglia is going to be there. Clark Bishop, who scored. He's an AHL guy who scored for the Flames last night. Martin Pospisil as well. You mentioned Slovakia earlier. You got to remember Martin Pospisil as well, too. So Yeah, so for split squad tonight, I think there's two things that I'm intrigued about if we're going to take both. The one is I want to watch how Vladar is going to play. Obviously, this is a full-blown Edmonton team, but you're still getting good minutes, and I just want to see, like, he's going to be getting a lot of games here in this preseason because of that battle we were talking about earlier with Dustin Wolf. So I want to see with Vladar how he kind of plays tonight. With a defense that is fairly big back there, and it's mainly a lot of defensive guys. So you might not get a full preview of Vladar tonight, but just want to see some minutes in for him tonight. And then we talked about it earlier. It's going to be Brustevich on the other side for me. And the reason why I bring it up is because he's going to be in Edmonton. He's probably going to play alongside Rasmus Andersson tonight. And biggest thing is that he's going to be going up against McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't know if they're playing on the first line with each other or not tonight, but he's going to get the full force of this Oilers team when it comes to those top two guys there, along with a few others who they kind of acquired this offseason as well. So is there anything that you're kind of seeing after I just kind of rattle off some of those names? Yeah. Is there anything that kind of jumps out to you, or just to kind of reiterate my points maybe, or is there something else that you wanted to bring up maybe with these split squad games tonight?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I want to see from both games is what type of identity is this Flames team? Like we've only seen one game and it was only a certain amount of guys that we got to see. But now with a split squad, what's great is that you get a multitude of guys from this entire team in this training camp all playing, and they're going to have fairly the same. I mean, they're going to have the same system. It's the same team. I think I'm really curious to see from the special teams. I think that's kind of something that I was looking at last year and saying that the Flames are one of those teams last year where it just seemed like they always would make one too many passes on the power play. And that's what would screw everything up. And I want them to get better on their entry zones, like getting into the zone. I don't know how many opportunities they're going to get on the power play in either game tonight, but I'm hopeful that you get to see a couple of times. I think the other thing for me is I want to see Devin Cooley, because Cooley's had such an interesting trajectory. I think he was in Buffalo to start. Then he got traded to San Jose, which, funny enough, that was his hometown team. He's from that area. So, that was a really good opportunity for him. And then obviously the Sharks don't bring him back. I mean, when you look at what the Sharks now have in net, I can kind of see why they move on. But Cooley's another guy that you do have your two guys for the NHL, for sure, which is great. But Cooley's one of those guys that maybe long-term could be maybe that 1B to Dustin Wolf. I really like Cooley. I think he's actually a pretty underrated netminder, and going in an opportunity where he's going to be playing against, as you mentioned, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, all that, good test. And I also am going to see, I really want to keep my eye on Brushevitz. How often is he going to be on the ice when McDavid and Draisaitl are there? And then how does he perform? Because you want to get thrown into the fire. You want to see how a kid reacts. How about you go up against two of the top 5 best players in the league right now in a preseason game? Go ahead. It's great. And you know what's great about preseason in general, Kyle? It's not like football where you can clearly tell that guys are not going 100%. You can't not go 100% in a hockey game, even if it's preseason, because you're going to get hurt if you don't. So for me, it's like, you're going to see McDavid use that speed. You're going to see Draisaitl be that aggressive, pain in the ass. I mean, it's going to be that way. So I think for me, I want to see Brushevitz. I want to see how he does. But I'm a big goaltending guy. For people that don't know, I'm a huge goaltender. I was goaltender myself, so I'm always watching goaltending. So I want to see how Vladar does, although, like you mentioned, with a big defense, he may not get a ton of action, but I want to see, regardless, when the puck gets to him, how he performs. And then with Cooley, he's going to get peppered. There's no other way to put it. And I think Cooley knows that going into this, that he's going to probably get beat up a little bit. I want to see how he performs. But I think people should give Cooley an opportunity to really, really see what he can do, because I think he shows some really untapped potential here.
And that's a name that we kind of forget about too. As much as it is a goaltending battle between what seemingly looks like Vladar and Wolf, Cooley could surprise people. And you mentioned it with Brustevich, this might be the best way to do it tonight as well, when you're going to go up against, 2 of the top 5 players in the world, right? Regardless, it's preseason. I don't care if this team ends up losing 5-0 tonight or whatever it is in Edmonton, right? I just want to see what are the goals looking like? What, you have to just watch it to its entirety, right? And it's so important. you mentioned it with football. Like, it's so important for preseason for these young guys. This is true valuable minutes. Like, how many times are we going to see Brustevich go up against McDavid and Draisaitl this year? This might be the only time that happens. How many times are we going to see Devin Cooley go up against this team? Who knows, right? Like, maybe he has to get called up for some reason. I don't know. So, a lot of great chances. And that's just speaking for Calgary. That's just for everybody else, right? It's just important to get those minutes in and really evaluate it. And you want to get these guys to play as much as you can. Unfortunately, kind of what happened with Jacob Pelletier last year, where he got hurt in the preseason, missed a lot of time in the regular season, didn't really get a lot out of him. That's why they did sign him to a 1-year deal recently on a 2-way contract. So again, going to get some chances again this year. He feels like he's left something on the table, and he wants to try and crack the roster this year. So a lot of things that kind of need to go down. Lots of time for it to happen. We got 2 weeks, give or take, before the season begins. And, maybe we're going to just start seeing some names that we're not really recognizing until we get to that point. And a lot of guys who are just trying to prove themselves going into a somewhat developmental year. I want to bring up the full trade of the Elias Lindholm deal. And it's important, okay? And there's a reason why I'm bringing it up, okay? Especially now. Because what hasn't been talked about is this trade is now complete, right? So looking back on it, if we recall, it was Lindholm getting sent to Vancouver. It was for Brustevich. It was for Andrei Kuzmenko, for Yanni Yermo, first-round pick that turned into Matej Grudin, and then a fourth-round pick that was actually traded for 2 picks in this draft this year, which turned into Henry Muse, I believe the Ottawa 67s of the OHL, and then Eric Jameson, who I think plays for London, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, yeah, London.
Right, London. So you take all of that, and I said it at the time, and I remember discussing this with Dylan a little bit, right, where he thought I think it was a fair deal, right? I wasn't so much on the fence of it because I said, well, you got to make this work, right? You got to make sure that, if you're going to go on a long run, it's a fair deal if he signs long term. Now all of a sudden he signed long term with Boston and he's gone, and you had him for what, 3, 4, 5 months, give or take, right? So for Canucks fans, it's brutal because you just lost. Again, I'll reiterate the assets like Kuzmenko, who the Flames might flip at the deadline. You lose Brustevich, who had a great opener here in the preseason. Yermo, who's going to get some action tonight. We'll see how he goes. Former 4th rounder, I believe. That 4th round pick that turned into 2, right? You're going to see Henry Muse tonight in action, along with Jameson. I don't think he was on the split squad sheet for tonight as well. And then Matej Grudin, who I think actually is going to be in the lineup tonight somewhere. No, I don't have him in there. But anyway, regardless, all of that for 3 or 4 months of Elias Lindholm. You know what I mean? And the way that Elliot Freeman now talks about Brustevich and kind of hyping up the rest of us, like, you really are going to look back on this and go, man. And you know what? This trade still isn't really complete if you think about it, because Kuzmenko could get dealt. And depending on the year that he has, you could flip that to, let's call it like a second. Let's call it a second and a prospect.
I think his ceiling is a 2nd-round pick unless he has this unbelievable season where he's on a scoring tear. I think the best you're going to get is to start. You might get 2 picks depending on who you deal with, but Kuzmenko's a guy that I think for a contending team could provide some really solid scoring.
Possible.
And a 2nd-round pick, I think, is fair.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I just thought it was I just laugh at it a little bit. It's
I never had faith that the Canucks were going to re-sign Lindholm. I thought
they were.
I had a tough time believing it because I looked at it as they were taking a big risk, because I think it was one of those moments where Vancouver's looking at the tremendous year that they had, and they did, do not get me wrong. And I think they wanted to capitalize on that because I think they wanted to see how far they could go with this team. In hindsight, I think they would look back and probably not do that deal.
Right.
Because Lindholm was not great in his...
He was good in the playoffs. He was good in the playoffs,
which is important. But at the same time, you kind of have to look at it and say, I think that it just didn't work. I think it's just I'm sure any Canucks fan will say that maybe they wouldn't do the deal now. I think they would have said, yeah, we do it if they got him signed. And I think I did hear that the Canucks were trying to get him signed before the playoffs, and then it just never
Fell apart,
materialized. And
yeah.
look, Boston is Boston. Boston's going to throw out money hand over fist to veteran guys. They're just trying to win because they have no farm system. I think I just checked today. Bleacher Report ranked Boston with the 32nd highest
prospect,
32nd best prospect pool in the NHL. Like, translation, they don't have anybody.
Right.
They have nothing. So
wild.
That's where it's at.
Yeah. I mean, God, I think to sum that up, I think they acquired the wrong guy. You know what I mean? You know what? Too,
I feel like a lot of Canucks fans didn't want that.
You know what? You're going to get a lot of back and forth, I think, from it, right? Like, you're going to say, yes, this guy, yes, Kuzmenko should have gone. No, he shouldn't have gone. He needed to change your scenery, yes or no. Like, it's back and forth, right? Yeah. So anyway, we'll finish up the show because I did bring in at the last second. I don't even know if I'm really going to play.
I saw him typing this before we started.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't know how to respond to this one.
I
brought it up on Spotify, by the way. I brought up the whole list on Spotify.
You know what? I'll bring it up on socials after too, right? But listen, I'm not really excited for this game this year because
I'm never excited.
It's such disappointment year after year after year.
If you played Madden for the last 10 years, you should not be excited about anything.
No, absolutely not.
Except college football. I will say CF college football 25 is actually pretty good. Other than that, no. NHL, people talk about, Madden doesn't get touched up. The NHL franchise hasn't been touched in a good 15
decades.
No, you know when it died? NHL 15 is when it died.
Completely agree.
NHL 15 on the new gen was the worst thing I have ever seen. Most bare bone operation.
Oh, I know.
So this playlist means nothing.
I know. So NHL 25 came out with their soundtrack.
You want me to bring I can bring it up right now. I have it on screen. Let me find it. Here we go. Here's my
just kind of looking
at Spotify people. So
I like Lovely the Band. I like that's on there. Green Day. Love the fact that's on there.
Yeah.
21 Pilots is a good one too. Is there any
Cage the Elephant? This is good.
Is there any that you see that kind of go?
You got Cage the Elephant, which I like. Imagine Dragons, I like personally. I know Kings of Leon, Nothing to Do. Ignore the fact that Dua Lipa's on the right side of my screen. Don't judge me, please. What else? 21 Pilots. I don't know if you mentioned 21 Pilots is on here. It's pretty much. I mean, and like you mentioned, Green Day is good. A lot of bands I've never heard of before, but clearly what EA was trying to do this year was trying to go back to that NHL 09 type of feel where it's a lot more heavy rock, which is fine with me. I think it was NHL 09. It was one of the. I
think you're right. Yeah, I think
I'm right. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was one of those. But regardless, show me the game. EA just
we don't care.
EA just posted yesterday a 25-minute video of their
franchise
in-depth franchise mode. I don't care. What do you want me to I don't play Ultimate Team. So I'm not going to give you more money for a $60 game.
Yeah, well, that's what I do.
I don't play video games anymore. So there you go.
Franchise. It's just something to do. I'll play franchise and mess around a little bit.
Yeah.
And act like I know what I'm doing. But that's
exactly. And we act like we know what we're doing. Exactly. That's how it is. But it's cool.
Yeah.
I'll say this from a music standpoint. Honestly, pretty solid selections. I like it because I like when they incorporate artists that have never been kind of shown before that you don't know about. I'll tell you all a really fun fact. Years ago on MLB The Show, so this was Sony, not EA, but this was Sony. One of my older brothers, he was in a band called Parlor Mob. One of their songs was featured on one of the MLB The Show games. So that was
no
really
way.
Cool. Yeah, so I still have
that's awesome.
But yeah, that was really cool. Other than it's
memorabilia.
It's exactly. That's just what it is. So
I think that'll wrap up.
Do you want to answer any of these questions on the side here? I think we had a couple of questions.
I don't want to answer.
I'll answer them. I'll answer them personally. Dawson says, who really needs to improve their game for this season for the Flames? Okay, if it's not Jonathan Huberdeau, then I don't know who to tell you.
Look, I've said it before with him. He needs to have a goal scorer by his side, or else he's not doing much, right?
He needs
And
to want to play
he had a
hockey.
good year. He had a decent year last year, which is fine. But I tell you what, if he was a smart man, right, you're going up to management going, look, let's take $2 million off the cap for the next couple of years just to like give ourselves a little bit more wiggle room, right?
Mm.
By the way, they have $23 million in cap space, by the way. When they get rid of Kuzmenko and Mantha, they're going to have more. So you're right. Like, it's always going to be Huberdeau, right? But if he can put up 60, 70 points, I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
I don't have much of a problem with it. It's just, I think what bugs me more is the fact that, like, yeah, True Living gave him the deal, and I understand him not like wanting to, like, he's going to collect the money, and I don't blame him. But look, the prime example here is going to be Crosby, where he takes 8.7 for the year because he wants to win, right?
Right.
If you're Huberdeau and you want this to work, and you want to win, you want to give, you have to understand that you are eating this up. You need to perform better, and if you're not,
Sure.
maybe you go to management and talk to them and say, hey, take $2 million off. Like, I'll have my money. You know what I mean? That's the crazy part about all this. So you're right. Like, it is going to be Huberdeau at the end of the day.
Because, like, and yeah, we could say like that there's a bunch of guys that like need to improve, obviously, but like Huberdeau is the one from the contract standpoint and everything. He's got to get going a little
Gotta
bit.
go. And then mentioned earlier,
you want to see the Flames tank this year for a high pick? Personally, yeah, because like
they got to keep the
last year as an example. Like last year, the Flames were kind of in it, and it was kind of weird to be in that position of like, are we in it? Are we not in it? And I think because I like to use the Markstrom trade as a good example of like being in that difficult spot where like I think the Flames looked at it like, do we really want to do this and like cut our losses and say that we're tanking, or do we still want to try to make a run here and try to make the playoffs? And it's one of those things where if you're not 100% sure that you're going to make it or that you feel that you should make it or whatever, the next best thing is to focus on lose, as painful as it is.
Yeah.
And as much as it sucks, like you got to go through it. You have to.
Totally.
Especially
and to get Zane Parekh at 9 this year, and from what people are saying about him, like you're absolutely right, and also too, like you have to keep your draft pick in terms of conditions, right? Because you want to finish bottom 10. So that's why it's such a weird year. But you just gotta, you gotta see where it just takes you, right? And
and just have fun. Like in a year where you have like no pressure to win, right? And it's all about development. This is where you can have more fun as a fan, where you could like kind of pinpoint on something that you're just interested in watching, and just be like, all right, I just want to see how this team does. And if they if they end up losing, like give or take like 50 games or whatever combined, if they're still competing by April, at least you could sit there and say, okay, well, they competed. And I think that in rebuilding teams, that's always what you want. Yeah, obviously you want to lose, but you also kind of still want to compete and have that kind of interest of like these young guys. And I think that's how the Flames got to promote it. Promote it as we are going to compete. We are going to play as hard as we can and go from there.
Hence why we're starting this now, because this is going to be a journey for the next 2 to 3 years. Who knows even more, right? You don't know, because you understand that Saddleland's going to go. They're getting ready for this new arena. That's basically the plan for this. And
they should just keep the Saddle Dome just for fun.
I don't know what they're going to do with it, to be honest.
I had argued, like, make it a museum. I'm not even joking. Like, I'm not actually joking. Like, I think that would be fun, but it may just cost way too much money.
To maintain it, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, it's like the Astrodome in Houston is still there after this many years because they can't afford to knock it down. So it's like
it might be a bus parking lot for all we know.
I'm
again,
really trying to get out there for the one time before it closes. But
I will be there. I'll be in Buffalo for Flames Sabres beginning of was that November, I think, is when they play. Saturday afternoon, 1:00. It's gonna be
I'll definitely try to get out when Calgary's in New Jersey. I will be there for that to kind of do.
That'll be in March. That'll be all.
Yeah, that's in March. Yeah, it's tough. That's tough. But it's fun. I mean, it's fine. But if they're when they're in Long Island, I'll try to go. MSG is kind of tough.
I'll be in Calgary in February, and
there you go.
Probably go see a game as well.
But for me on social, guys, like I will do my best to keep up to date. I promise you, I will I will get better at this.
It's all good.
Every episode is just going to keep getting better. It's like Tony Kornheiser from, ESPN. What did we do wrong now? But we blew it. Or like, what's the guy from TSN? That's just like, we blew it.
Oh, Jay Onright.
Yeah, Jay Onright. Well, I blew it. But no,
that's going to be a lot of the cases this year. Right?
This was fun. This was a fun first episode. And I'm excited to be a part of this like journey of like covering a new team and having even more interest in like watching other teams.
That's why like
I gotta get a Flames jersey, Kyle. I have to get one.
You can get one very cheap. I can send you one. I got a crap one from like what was it? You guys don't call it like Value Village. It's an old God, what do you call it? It's like dollar store stuff.
Sure.
Go get a t-shirt.
Okay. I mean, if you want to send it to me, fine.
This is why like we're doing this now. It's a journey. It's going to be a process, right? Yeah. And it just feels right because now it feels like you've got everybody there that wants to be there and that wants to build something special. And that's
finally
what
right. Isn't it such a relief that like we finally have a team that like guys
people that want to be there.
Hubert I'm still not sure about.
He's signed 8 years. He's here whether he likes it or not.
Like Colton wants to be there. I don't give him that.
Great. That'll be it.
He's a good guy. Come on, give him a break. Blake Pickles is a good guy.
He's a good guy.
That contract makes Kyle just unwell.
Yeah, it does. Episode 1 in the books.
We will keep track of every Lego set that Sharon Govich will put out this year.
Maybe that'll be the next one.
That's what we were saying. That maybe we'll do a ranking of like all of them, and then we'll see which one we like the most.
That's a wrap, Bill, for episode 1 of God knows how many. But thank you for doing this with me, Neil. We'll get some guests along too. We're gonna have a fun year coming up. We'll have lots of guests coming on, and it'll be good. We'll make sure we do our due diligence. But we'll be back again Thursday for our second one. We'll kind of see how the week goes, and we'll go from there. So thanks for listening, and for those of you who are watching as well. And we'll see you all on Thursday. Enjoy a great night, and we'll chat soon.